Everybody, we've got the 98 Skybox Fleer Metal Universe baseball set here. Put them on penny sleeves the other day, and I'm going to give you a quick tour of the set. I think we go up to about 220 total cards here. Starts off with Jose Cruz Jr. Down to Jeff Abbott, Rafael Palmeiro. You can see the back of the card there. It's got the previous season stats as well as the career stats for every player. Pod Rodriguez. And yeah, with this series, you've got the foiled feature, making it look pretty snazzy. You've got the thing that sets it apart is that background image for each player. It's always a different kind of imagery being used and keeps it very fresh and unique, each card in the series. So definitely what is the iconic aspect of this set is the background there, and you've got some giraffes for Chuck Findlay, Anaheim Angels, the late 90s Angels uniform there. Kind of nice with the pinstripes, and then the logo, which they haven't used in a good time. I'm not sure if they do throwbacks every now and then. They probably do. Every team seems to go back to their old logo and uniforms from time to time. Travis Fryman. Big unit Randy Johnson here. The Seattle Sky Needle in the background. Big unit 51. Derek Lee playing for the Marlins there. A couple seasons after this, he'd go with the Cubs for a little bit. Bernie Williams. I'll start going through these. Might talk about a player every now and then. These are all players who, this 98 season, I was about 8 years old. So I know a little bit. Anything I can impart, I will. There's Nomar Garciaparra. Yeah, this is the time where you had the rise of, you had A-Rod, Jeter, Garciaparra, even a couple other players who were the prominent shortstops of the time. And really, when you look at it, Nomar Garciaparra might have been, for at least the early part of that period here, the late 90s into maybe the early 2000s, he might have been the better of them, but then maybe getting eclipsed by Jeter and Rodriguez later on. But for a while there, Garciaparra had that one season, I think, where he hit almost 360. He was a really good average hitter, had a good amount of power, but A-Rod had more power, obviously, and didn't have the longevity though of the other shortstops that eclipsed him in WAR and other factors. But Garciaparra was definitely pretty good for the game back in that late 90s period there. Let's go back to Jason Kendall, actually. Jason Kendall, one of the best contact hitting catchers of this era. You can see his batting average there. He was a consistent 300 hitter. Right here, he's kind of right below that with 297. But he didn't have a lot of power. He was just a pure contact hitter. And that's what he's known for, Jason Kendall. I think he played a little bit for Pirates here, and then I think also the Royals at some point, if I'm not mistaken. There, Kyle. Moises Alou, playing for the Astros here. With his Marley, so he just went over to the Astros after playing for the Marlins. Marlins won a World Series right around this time, blew the team up shipped everybody off to other teams and rebuilt from the ground up again, winning 2 World Series by just putting together good, solid teams. Jim Edmonds, he was one of the prominent center fielders of this era. You see his hitting stats there. He was also had good power, hit 26 home runs, 97 there, so he was a good 25 home run guy yearly, and a really good defender too. I think he won at least a number of Gold Gloves in the range of at least probably 4 or 5, I would say. Yeah, Jim Edmonds, definitely a worthy, memorable center fielder from the time. Jose Guillen on the Pirates here. Chuck Knobloch. And here you got the the design of the background. Sometimes it's interesting to see how they're how they make the background kind of almost interact with the player shot there. So you've got the kind of transparent player image, the background there, and you see his kind of leg is supposed to be, I guess, behind this rock face here. Back when he was on the Twins. Javi Lopez, he was probably the best hitting catcher of his era. Had good power. Very good 97 season there, 23 home runs, almost hit 300. Like if you were doing a fantasy draft in this time, you'd probably want Javi Lopez as your catcher, just from a hitting standpoint. He was decent defensively. He wasn't really a liability defensively, but you probably had better defensive catchers, like Pudge Rodriguez, for instance. There's Billy Wagner on the Astros. Keep flipping it the wrong way. My bad. But yeah, look at Billy Wagner, already lights out this early in his career. Venturing up to 32 saves there, and he'd have at least 300 some odd in his career, maybe 400 actually. I want to see him in the Hall of Fame one day. I think he's a worthy Hall of Famer. Had a good career, very consistent. I think he should be a Hall of Famer one day. Hope he is. Also, Virginia native. Can't have too many of those in the Hall of Fame. There's Joe Carter on the Orioles here. So he must have went over the Orioles for the last few years of his career. What did he get up to home run wise? He got up to almost 400 home runs. One of his most famous is that iconic World Series home run to win it in, I believe, 93. Gary Gaetti. Juan Gonzalez. Jeffrey Hammond. Yeah, I was pretty satisfied with this set. I bought the complete set. Like I said, I had to put them in penny sleeves myself, but they came in very good condition. There was a couple cards that I'll get to later. A very prominent card in this series. I had to reorder another one because there was some damage to it. It was stuck to another card, and I was very dissatisfied to see that one card in particular. I'll show you too when it comes up here. Manny Ramirez in his career at this point, breaking. I watched a video actually on Manny Ramirez in his career, and he really did hit probably on top of everybody in the league. And at this time, he was an incredible hitter. One of the worst defensive players in MLB history, but that being said, he was an absolute beast behind or at the plate. Robin Ventura for the White Sox. Rondell White. Benny Castilla. Will Clark for the Rangers here. He was a giant. Still having his batting average above 300 at this point. At 326 and 97. Scott Hatterberg, catcher at this point for the Red Sox. This is had a full season under his belt in 97. He was I guess, full rookie season there in 97. So not his rookie card, but his sophomore card. Ross Johnson. That's a kind of interesting design there. I guess we're on the surface of the moon, but it looks like 2001: A Space Odyssey at the end there with a kind of psychedelic color. That's an interesting one. Another one, we're looking at Earth from this is the moon here. Ricky Leday on the Yankees. Kenny Lofton. Look at his numbers. He got that batting average. He's an overlooked player. He's not in the Hall of Fame as of right now, but he has a compelling case to make there. The stolen bases, the batting average. I think maybe he didn't have like a Ricky Henderson length of his career, but very solid numbers when he played, and good defensively, speedster on the base paths, and then that average is really good. You think if you don't have his walk totals here, his on-base percentage, but maybe his on-base percentage perhaps a little low. Ricky Henderson walked all the time, so maybe that's what kind of sets him in maybe a lower tier than Henderson's play in his prime. Just that on-base percentage. Paul Molitor. This is a goofy one. I saw this one the other day, and to me, it's just I laugh at this because he got the little monorail, I guess, and it's like driving right towards him. He's like running away from it. It's goofy to me. There's a couple ones like that in here where it's just kind of goofy. You had the giraffe one earlier. This one might be another one. Maybe chuckle. There's probably about 6 or 7 of these that just make me chuckle for some reason. Craig Biggio playing second base here. Made that shift from catcher to second base at that point. Damien Easley. Brad Radke. About this time, Brad Radke was the pitcher for the Twins. They really had a lot of years there without an ace per se. He was kind of the ace by default. He had a 20-win season before this. You look at his ERA, just shy of 4 there, so not really exactly a dominant season, but 20 wins, 10 losses. Full season starts at 35 starts, so he had a great year there. That was his lone 20-win season. He might have had one more, but that might be his only 20-win season. There's Ben Greavy. That's the first 50 cards of the set there. Put that up here. Move these a little bit too. Mark Bellhorn. Henry Blanco. Mariano Rivera. A couple Yankees in here. One in particular that stands out. We'll get to that once. It's the David Cohen card. We'll get to that one shortly. Here, this is Rivera's really first season as the closer. 188 ERA, 43 saves, making 48 in his career. So, you saw him coming out of the bullpen, but this is his first full season as the closer for the Yankees, and the first of many, obviously. He would go on to be leading save guy in MLB history, of course, and phenomenal career. That cut fastball, making his repertoire deadly and lethal for left-handed batters, and of course righties. He had his breaking ball working for them anyway. He was able to use that cutter against those lefties to saw those bats in half and did well against right-handed pitching, of course, as well. Reggie Sanders, he's kind of an underrated guy from this time. I remember playing some base. I had a Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest on my Game Boy Color, and I would have Reggie Sanders on my team as a really capable outfielder. I think he's a little bit underrated for that time, but not a great player, but a solid one. Paul Sorrento, Terry Steinbach, native Minnesotan from New Ulm, Minnesota, and you got the background there, the winter forest matching. Usually when this is about Twins opening weekend right here with the snow. Back then, of course, they played in the Metrodome, so they had the dome, but now at Target Field, it's like, let's play baseball in Minnesota in April, and there might still be, 2 feet of snow on the ground. So I think usually they start the season on the road, and they'll go somewhere else, but hopefully it's not another place like Colorado. Usually they have Colorado and Minnesota probably not playing each other the first week of the season, because both those places are known to have a good amount of snow on the ground. Mo Vaughn, one of my favorite players from this time period. He had 35 home runs this 97 season. He had 315. He was a good average hitter, and he had a lot of pop. But not a guy that struck out constantly and didn't make contact. He made contact and hit for power. And hitting for Boston here. I think he was also an Angel at one point. Mo Vaughn, he was a really solid player from this late 90s era. Brady Anderson. Was this the season? No, this was the 18. I think it was right after this. He had that 50 home run season out of nowhere, and a little bit suspect, like him and many other MLB players. But not this guy, Tom Glavine. He's definitely within the bounds of what we expected out of our ball players. Tom Glavine, great career. Already at this point, over 2,000 innings pitched. Nearing about 1,400 strikeouts. Had a sub-3 ERA season there, 97. Only 14 wins, though. But like we know, wins are not a tell-all stat for pitchers. You look at the other stats to see how successful they were. Wins beyond their control a lot of the time. Sammy Sosa. I mean, with this one, you've almost got, today you've got the refractors, you've got all these, features with these cards, and kind of starting out here with this series, the Metal Universe, with some of these backgrounds, you see some similarities in the design. So this is definitely an innovative series of cards. It's no wonder why it's looked upon as, it's not just me, as one of the heightened series of over the years. I like this set a lot. Larry Walker, 49 home run season there, 366. I mean, this was one of his best seasons right there. 208 hits, 46 doubles, throwing some triples there, and then 130 RBI. Also 33 stolen bases. This was if you had your fantasy baseball team in 97, you had Larry Walker, you were putting up some good numbers there. Of course, you have the Coors Field effect, needless to say, but even with that, it's nice. I don't think you have one right now in Colorado, a player currently in 2022 who can also steal bases. That might be a nit factor in fantasy. You get the output of the home runs, but then also stolen bases on top of that. I mean, that'd be something special. Rod Beck, he was a good guy, the bullpen for Giants here. He'd also go on to play for the Cubs a little bit in the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember seeing him on WGN coming out of the bullpen for the Cubs. Those are my fondest memories in the summers of middle school, was having lunch in the summer and sitting down watching some baseball on WGN. Always the Cubs game every day. Even though I'm not really a huge fan of the Cubs, it was just, good to see free baseball. And it was, the Cubs on WGN. You had the Braves on TBS, of course. So Cubs and Braves baseball was pretty much broadcast over the whole country. So kids my generation, we always had Atlanta Braves baseball, Cubs baseball. Cubs baseball was nice too because Cubs usually played during the day. So like I said, I'd make myself some lunch in the noontime and watch some Cubs baseball. Steve Findlay. Interesting season here for almost 100 RBI. He was more like a leadoff hitter, but he had some good power. He had good hitting capability. I remember him playing on the Diamondbacks too. Eventually, this is I guess the year before the Diamondbacks. You won't see any of them in this set, but he might have been one of the players that they signed right away when they became an expansion team. And there's Pedro Martinez in the Expos uniform, but going to the Red Sox this year. You see, at that point, he had that 190 ERA season, 17 wins, 241 innings pitched. He was a workhorse. He was a consummate workhorse. I think seeing Pedro Martinez pitch was probably the most memorable pitcher I've ever seen. We've seen some great ones. We've seen a lot of really good ones over the years. There's John Olerud. Very underrated player. Even in this later part of his career, he was still raking 100 RBI season, 22 home runs. Didn't have elite power, but was a great contact hitter, good power, and a great person to have in your lineup there. Maybe in that 3 spot, maybe even cleanup sometimes. He was very, very solid. Here's a guy I want to see Scott roll in the Hall of Fame one day. I'm hoping it's coming up soon. He was a great hitter. Very much, at the very least above average hitter, and a really good Gold Glove third baseman too, I think, with his above average hitting and very solid, great fielding. I think he's a Hall of Famer. If you could take a third baseman from this mid 90s into the early, mid to late even 2000s, I think Scott Rowland might be at the top of my list there. Valdez, Vessel, Gruzelanek. There's a fun name to say. Eric Karros, Jeff Shaw. Stack's not working the way I want it. Let's see if we can angle it differently. Collier. Here you go. Edgar Martinez, another one with the Space Needle there for Seattle. The very prominent landmark of Seattle. One of the most well-remembered DHs of all time. He was a designated hitter for Seattle for so long. Hit .330 this season. 28 home runs, 108 RBI. He's a consummate Hall of Famer. Another one here, Vlad Guerrero. Still on the Expos at this point. Another season or two, he'd be heading off to Anaheim. And he'd also finish his career with the Orioles. But I think from this time period, watching Vladimir Guerrero play he was something. He was something that nobody else could even duplicate with his power, with his hitting for average. You see, this season here, he had only 90 games played, making for 9. This is very early in his career, but he was he had those great also fielding abilities. He was able to use his arm to make a lot of plays as well. So definitely one of my favorite players. And if you're simulating this time frame of MLB and you're making a team of all the players, I think Vlad Guerrero is probably a cornerstone that you would start out with because he was such a great player for a long time. There's Paul Konerko for the Dodgers here. He'd go on to move over to South Side Chicago with White Sox. Tomko, he was a pretty solid pitcher for a number of years. Yeah, pretty average. I'd say average to above average. This guy here, nothing average by him, Jeff Bagwell. He had great swing, 135 RBI, 43 home runs. This was prime Jeff Bagwell here. Before they made the move to Minute Maid Park over that they still play now. I think it's something. It's not Minute Maid Park anymore, but same ballpark, just new name. But you had the Killer Bees, Biggio, Bagwell, and later on Lance Berkman, which this might have been his rookie season, but I don't think he's in this series. It might have been the following year too. I'm not sure. There's Barry Bonds. We got the San Francisco Bay Bridge there. There's the stats for that 97 season, 40 home runs. Dave Justice. Hideo Nomo. Oh, this is a good one too. This one definitely makes me chuckle as well, but it's also, you know, Ryan Sandberg, the Rhino, and you got a Rhino there. And it's that same thing too, where it's like he's running away from the Rhino. I just can't get enough of that. It's like players running away from objects. It's a good motif to have in this series. There's Shannon Stewart, good outfielder. He would play for the Blue Jays here. He also played for the Twins a little bit too. This is kind of the beginning of his career. He's getting a little more solid play time here in 97, but by early 2000s, he'd be a consistent starter for the Blue Jays and later on for the Twins. He was a good guy to have the top of the order. Good average guy, good getting on base. Tony Womack, already stealing a ton of bases here. He got 60 this season. This is kind of his coming out season. Had a good batting average and yeah, got on base, stole bases. That was his thing. It's Jason Giambi, Mark Grace. Raul Mondesi. I really miss these Angels uniforms. I like them. I like the logo there. I think that's a good blast from the past for me. Tim Salmon, he was another good outfielder for the Angels. You had Jim Edmonds and Tim Salmon. I believe Tim Salmon played more right field, if I'm thinking back correctly there. But good average hitter, ton of RBIs, ton of home runs. Yeah, he had some good totals there in his career. There's Sean Green, still playing for the Blue Jays at this point. He was a very prominent player. This season looks a little, he had to maybe, not sure why his at-bat total's so low there. He played 135 games, but then only 53 RBI, only 16 home runs. He was a big prospect that came up and didn't have maybe the trajectory that they were hoping for, but he was a solid player. A really good season here in terms of batting average, and he was mainly the backup catcher for the Angels, it looks like. But he hit 290. You get your catcher hitting 290. That's gonna work out for you. Dion Sanders for the Reds at this time. I think he had a good baseball career, really. Dion Sanders known for being an NFL cornerback, prime time, but you look at his numbers here. He was a solid contributor to a baseball team. A lot of triples, a lot of stolen bases, but very respectable. Other two-sport athletes. I think Dion Sanders might be the best of them. Don't tell Bo Jackson I said that. There's A-Rod, card number 100 in the set. This is that huge year he had with, he had one season where he had, I think it was right before this, the 96 season where he had like 54, I think, doubles. He just completely raked on doubles. And some stolen bases. Yeah, he rose to prominence right around this time. He was seen as the elite shortstop of the time. Start going through these maybe a little more rapidly. There's Ray Langford, Charles Nagy, Ray Ordonez. He was a very good defensive shortstop, not a very good hitter. You see his batting average totals there. He was definitely a defensive expert, not so much. He'd be batting 8th, or if they had the DH, they'd be batting him 9th, because he was definitely a defensive specialist. Mike Piazza, kind of the opposite. He was a hitter. 362 this season. He had one of the best seasons a catcher has ever had. 40 home runs, 124 RBI. Started a ton of games too. 152 games. Only sat out 10 games. So, just mind-boggling numbers there for a catcher. Kurt Schilling, 17-win season, sub-3 ERA, 254 innings pitched, so that equates to 119 strikeouts. Yeah, that's a heck of a season there. Fernando Tatis Sr., Big Mac. He had a 58 home run season here. This is the season before the breaking of Roger Maris's record. Dave DeLucci, Gary Anderson. He must have played left field. I think he had Tim Salmon right field, Jim Edmonds, and then Gary Anderson. Great outfield. All of them hitting above 300 with some. Not so much power for Gary Anderson. He's more of a contact guy. But 92 RBI, 10 stolen bases to even that out. Yeah, real solid outfield. They had that couple years there with that trio of Anderson, Salmon, and Edmonds. Here's the David Cohen card, and as you can see, for obvious reasons, kind of a it's almost notorious card. You got the World Trade Center in the background there, relic of the past, and in many ways commemorating this card here. And I was looking up, this card is one of the more valuable ones in the set because of that imagery used in the background of the World Trade Center. So there's a look at that. Let me focus in on this for you. There you have it. When I was going through this set, that kind of made me do a double take. But yeah, World Trade Center, 97, 4 years before September 11th terrorist attacks. Jeff King. Matt Williams on the Indians there. Aaron Boone on the Reds. Dennis Eckersley. Love that wind-up he had there. And, of course, the stash. Can't Can't talk about actually without talking about the stash. Livan Hernandez. Hidalgo. Tino Martinez. Jose Vedro. This is his first full season, it looks like. This is his rookie card. No indication on these cards if they're rookies or not. It's go. It didn't really come about until a little later. They put the RC or rookie of some kind. As Donruss, you had rated rookies, so kind of the rise of the rookie. You have the tops, all-star rookie designation sometimes. John Wetland, oh yeah, he was. We had Rivera coming up right now, and at this time 97, but Wetland was the guy at the time. He had to be usurped by Rivera, and he would be as the top closer. But at this point, Wetland was the best. J. Bell, Albert Bell, no relation. Marty Cordova, former Rookie of the Year. I think he was Rookie of the Year 96. You can see he had a bit of a trending down in his batting average and numbers across the board, really. Wouldn't quite reach the potential that the Twins were hoping for as that American League Rookie of the Year. Chile Davis, another former Twin. I forgot the power numbers. He hit a lot of home runs. I saw this card and I was like, how many home runs did he hit in his career? And I was in my head like maybe 200, maybe low 200s, but over 328. He might have finished with maybe about 350. This is later part of his career. He'd already played over 2,000 games. Got to about over 2,222 hits. Great career for Chile Davis and a great name. Rusty Greer. There we go. Mad Dog, Greg Maddux. 97, one of his 4 loss in a season. That's incredible. 2.20 ERA. Workhorse. Not pushing the strikeouts, pitching to contact, and making hitters look silly by working the outside corners of the zone, working the black of the plate. Billy Taylor. Jim Thome. 40 home run season, 100 RBI. Gerald Williams. Jeff Cirillo. Delino DeShields. This is him playing on the Cardinals here. He played on a number of teams. There we go. Big Cat Andres Galarraga playing for the Rockies in the picture, but then he go to be on the Braves there, and he was a solid contributor for the Braves. A little bit of a step down from Coors Field numbers, but he was hitting about a 290 career batting average with a lot of power. Pride of Venezuela. Willie Green. John Jaha. Charles Johnson. You got Klesko, Paul O'Neill. Robbie Alomar there. Yeah, he hit 333 that season. Only played 112 games. He must have had a little bit of time out with injury. But a very solid contact hitter at this point, playing for Baltimore. Remember, you had Palmeiro, Alomar, and Ripken, of course. Kind of making a good trio there in Baltimore. There's Andrew Jones. This is early on in his career, as you can see. First full season, 153 games, only hit 231 this season. Would develop a little more hitting prowess as he progressed in his advancing years, and still a steadfast defensive guy is what he's known for. 10 Gold Gloves in a row. Another guy who I'm hoping gets in the Hall of Fame one day. I hope he's enshrined in Cooperstown, because I feel like when I'm looking at center fielders from 90s into the 2000s, I'm not looking really beyond that. My top guy, Andrew Jones. That's who I'm thinking. All right, last stack here. I think, yeah, it goes up to a couple checklist cards. It goes up to 220. So there's about 220 cards in this set. 151, we got Mike Lansing, Mickey Morandini, Nephi Perez, Pokey Reese, Edgar Renteria. He had a solid career. Eric Young. Darren Erstad. Let's look at his stats. Yeah, the Angels just had a very potent lineup. They must not have had any pitching, because if they had some good pitching, they would have been World Series champs before they eventually were in the 2005, I believe. But this Angels team with Erstad at first and then their outfield, I mean, very potent lineup there. This one he had two Darren Erstads for some reason, so I'll take it. Escobar, Carl Everett. Carl Everett's story I always tell is, I forget who was playing for at the time. I was at Nats Park, maybe 2006 or so, 2007. And Carl Everett was at bat, hits a foul ball, goes in the stands, and I remember it was just by bad luck, the foul ball hit what appeared to be an elderly woman walking with her food to her seat, and I felt kind of bad. And Carl Everett, interesting guy, had a bit of a reputation for a number of reasons, and just kind of bad luck that one time. A foul ball hits a fan without them knowing. So this is right here, the Tom Gordon card, and then my Ken Griffey. You can see it on the card here, right in the center. You got some sticky stuff on here. It was adhesed to it, and you can see the damage on this card here. So the Griffey, of course, the one card in this whole series that's damaged is the Ken Griffey Jr. So there's my luck. So I did order another, just a single of this Ken Griffey Jr. just to replace this, because that's just terrible luck, and you can see just the really bad damage there on the surface. Everything else is fine, but look at that season there. Yeah, 53 home runs, 304 batting average. So that was that one card that got, for some reason, just had some damage to it. Some must have got in the in between those two cards there. Carlos Delgado. Let's look at his stats here. He would, yeah, this is right before he was kind of one of the top first basemen, but you can see those 30 home runs. That's pretty big, 91 RBI. But that batting average would also rise, and he'd be a good average hitter as well. Dominican first baseman there, Carlos Delgado. Kevin Brown, this is his heyday. Yeah, really good pitcher for going to the Padres after this, working with the Marlins. Yeah, he was a bell cow. He was on that mound, eating up innings, getting wins, and a 2.69 ERA. He was a steadfast all-star game pitcher for about half a decade there, at least. Ken Caminetti, Clemens on the... I love the thing about Clemens on the Blue Jays, which I think he was there for maybe 3 or 4 years. 21 win season here with almost 300 strikeouts, 264 innings pitched, and an ERA almost under 2. This is one of the best pitching years in this decade. You wouldn't see stuff like this again until the Kershaw in LA with the Dodgers. And I guess Pedro Martinez with the Red Sox. But yeah, there's some gaudy numbers there. Ron Gant, Jeff Kent. The old famous Jeff Kent story where he was washing his car in his driveway, slipped and fell, and hurt himself, had to go on the disabled list because of a injury faced while washing his car. One of those dubious stories. I mean, like Sammy Sosa had to go on the disabled list as well because he sneezed, right? And so you get stories like that all the time with these players and the adversity they face over the course of a 162 game season. Mike Mussina, this jumped out at me. Look at his, or was it? I might be mistaken here. 15 wins, 3.20 ERA. I'm thinking of a different card actually. It was one of his first seasons in MLB. He had, I think, a sub 3 ERA, and I didn't realize maybe just how good he was right away. Homer, Rodriguez, Matt Stairs. Yeah, Matt Stairs, he's a story of someone who came into Major League Baseball late. He was only, maybe undersized a little bit, 5'9", never really got the looks. He was kind of a nobody, mystery man out of Canada. And, if he had the at-bats, if he had the workload, it would be interesting to see the numbers he would have put up in his career. But we'll never know that untapped potential that, he did not pass the eye test. Before sabermetrics, you had the eye test, right? And he was someone that scouts looked at and said, he's a runt. He's not big enough. He's not fast enough. I think he also was playing shortstop, and they thought that was kind of odd. Like, he's not really a shortstop. But he did eventually get a lot of playing time in Oakland here, and then bounced around a little bit, would become a pinch hitter, known for a very famous pinch hit home run for the Philadelphia Phillies as they went to the World Series, I think in 2004 or 5. Jay Buhner. A little bit of a down year for him average-wise, but still had the power, still had the RBIs. He's a guy that got away from the Yankees, as Frank Costanza had some words with George Steinbrenner and Seinfeld about. Frank Thomas, big hurt. What was his year? 97, 347 batting average, 125 RBI, and then 35 dingers. I think with Frank Thomas, he was 6'5", big guy, 200, almost 60 pounds, and the longevity he had, the durability, I think was very uncharacteristic of someone of that size. Usually players that size don't last as long as he did, but he did have a full MLB career and full of great seasons of hitting for average and power and accumulating all those stats and put him in the Hall of Fame. Mike Cameron, a young Mike Cameron here. This was his first full season. You see his numbers there, and he had a good long career too. Above average outfielder, mainly playing center field. Good defensively, good hitter, had a little bit of power. But he stuck around a lot, and he played on a number of teams, but he was always good. Johnny Damon on the Royals. I always forget he's on the Royals before moving out to Oakland and later on to the Red Sox. But he played for like 4 or 5 or 6 seasons with the Royals in a small market. Moving on to another small market team with the Athletics, and then moving to the big market Red Sox at the time. Winning a World Series with them. There's Tony Gwynn, the great Tony Gwynn. Rest in peace. 372. I mean, nobody came close to Tony Gwynn in this time frame. A guy who rarely struck out. 119 RBI there. Usually he was not not a big power guy. 17 home runs. Usually those RBI totals were less than what he had here. But when you're going to hit 372, you're going to drive in runs. I mean, I don't care who you're playing for. You're going to have a good season. John Smoltz. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, watching Atlanta Braves baseball on TBS, you'd have, a 60% chance of seeing Maddox, Smoltz, or Glavine pitch. Three incredible pitchers, all Hall of Famers, for good reason. Smoltz here with a 15-12 record there, but look at those inning pitch numbers: 256, and then over 240 strikeouts. BJ Serhoff, one of my favorite. I loved watching him play. He wasn't all-star. He wasn't, going to win a batting title, but he came to work every day. And he had a good bat in MVP Baseball 2005. I got a dynasty going there, and he's the guy on my team that's a pinch hitter, because he's really good. In that game, they rank him really good against left-handed pitching, actually, but as a left-handed hitter. So I thought that was kind of unique. I guess maybe he did have good success against lefties, even though he was himself a left-handed hitter. Alan Bennis. No relation to Elaine Bennis, I'm sure. Jeremy Burnett. This guy was a good power hitter. He had some good pop. I think this is like 98, 99. He was a candidate for leading the league in home runs, along with, Sosa, McGuire. He was kind of on there. He was chasing them for a good amount of those seasons where you had the home run races in 98, 99, into 2000. Another one of someone being chased by an animal. Tony Clark here. Tony Clark, the current president of the Major League Baseball Players Association, which they've been busy the past couple of weeks here with getting that lockout to end with baseball. So we thank you, Tony Clark, and everybody else that's a member of the Players Association. It's Todd Hilton. Not quite where he would be eventually, but this is his rookie card. And he played 35 games this year. A little bit of power, good average, but he would go on to be one of the prominent first basemen, not just because of the Coors Field effect, but because of so much more. And it's another card where I got a little bit of, it's got some stuff stuck to it. Yeah, not a whole lot of that in this series, but I guess the Todd Hundley, you can see the damage here in the lower left, of the top right. These two were stuck together. But I think the worst I had with that was a hockey set, 92, 93 tops, and pretty much every card was stuck together. It was an absolute mess. It was one of my worst experiences of breaking a box of cards. I was just very much deterred by that series. It was not a fun experience, but there's some good players in there going through the old school hockey players, but the condition of those cards was just abhorrent. Here's Chipper Jones. He was my favorite player at the time. Chipper Jones. Watching the Braves, watching Chipper go to work, great batting average, good power. Yeah, this was a good year in his career, but he would have even better seasons down the road too. Mark Kotze. I thought that was Jeff Cohen for a second, but Mark Kotze. Barry Larkin, Hall of Fame shortstop. Yeah, 317 that year. Not a full season play, only 73 games. He must have been hurt. His career average there, 299. One of the best offensive shortstops in history. Mike Lieberthal, he was a solid catcher. 20 home runs there. Yeah, Mike Lieberthal, he was a good catcher for the Phillies there. Andy Pettitte, straddling the Brooklyn Bridge. Another one with the World Trade Center in the background there. So the David Cohen one was portrait orientation. This one's landscape. So you got the Brooklyn Bridge, you got the Twin Towers there. This one might be another one that's just the novelty of that card because of the, commemoration of the World Trade Center, Twin Towers. Gary Sheffield on the Marlins here. Jeff Supan, Mark Wohlers, Dante Bichette. Bichette happens. 118 RBI, 26 home runs. Good stuff. Trevor Hoffman already notching those saves here. 2.66 ERA. That wicked changeup. He had a changeup that would just die at the plate and make hitters look silly. JT Snow with snowy background. I mean, literally snow. He was, he's underrated too, I think. You look at JT Snow, this 97 season, hit 280, 28 home runs, and 100 RBI. He was a crucial part of that lineup with Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds get on base, he'd drive him in. JT Snow, that was a good duo there. This is another really good iconic card here with the Statue of Liberty close up there. Derek Jeter. That's a good one. Cal Ripken there, another shortstop. Although at this point he's playing third base. This might be the season he switched over to third base, actually. Nearing 3,000 hits there. Year 2000, he'd finally break that record, or not record, but that milestone of 3,000 hits. I was able to attend that game myself. I still have a certificate for that. Going out of the game after the conclusion, they were handing out certificates and had a place to put your ticket stub on it. Still have it. Ray Durham, he was a good guy. Good hitter. Good defensive second baseman, too. Stolen base guy. 33 stolen bases. This is the last base card in the series, so there's a Ray Durham there. Chicago skyline in the background. Then we get to these kind of comic book influenced cards, and then you got the checklist in the back. But these are called with the Hardball Galaxy, and this is, you got Bonds here. All kind of like superhero type things, I guess. Like the depictions of them, very much comic book inspired, I guess. All done by the same artist here, Dan Lawless. This is Tony Clark. You got Clemens. You got Griffey. You got Dion. You got Jeter. You got Johnson. You got Ripken. You got Hideo Nomo. You got Mike Piazza. Cal Ripken Jr. Those blue eyes. Kind of prominent in that depiction there with him at now third base. And you can see that, third base right there. A-Rod, Frank Thomas. Is that a face on the ball there? That's interesting. Move on. He wasn't actually that sizable, but he was still pretty big. But a little bit exaggerated. Look how big his knuckles are. His hands bigger than his head. And then here we've got Larry Walker. And then you got your checklist. You got your King Griffey Jr. checklist. You got your A-Rod checklist. You got your Frank Thomas checklist. And that'll do it. That is the Metal Universe 1998 series. It's full of nostalgic memories for me. It's, in my opinion, I love the design. Really can't get enough of this series, whether it's the football set or the baseball set. I think it does a lot of things great. I think it was an influential set. What it did for the trading card industry, I think, is still seen. I think the foil nature of it, it was a premium looking card, and this is what's going to take us from the junk card era into what we have as modern day cards. So it was, I think, an important stepping stone for that. So I think that's when you're thinking about the grand scheme of card series over the years, I think this has a place at the table when it comes to what is a series that influenced things, progressed things forward. This is it right here, the Metal Universe series. I will cherish this set. I will show it off, and I will talk about it with people who want to hear me talking about it, like you. So I will see you next time. Enjoy other cards like this. If you have anything like this in your collection, let me know. I'd like to hear from you, and I will hear from you hopefully soon. Take care.